The Vocal Studio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Vocal Studios podcast, Find Your Inner Voice. Yes, a pretty hand. we talk about we talk about singing, music, and vocal coaching and life around it. We are the vocal coaches at the Vocal Studio Singapore, and you are now with us on our podcast, Find Your Inner Voice. Hi, this is Hannah. And today I'm going to have a conversation with our pretty coach, Miss Bojana. Hi.
Hello.
All right. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Very, very good. It's good to see you. We're having a wonderful Friday. So many things going on. Very exciting.
Yeah, so many things going on. So it's really exciting, like gearing towards the end of the year. So there are some things, that keep us occupied and busy, which I think is good.
End of year, everything has to end, and then it has to start again. So we really have to get everything together. And looking forward to our performance days for our students.
Yeah.
And some other things happening, recordings, this and that.
Yeah, so far I think we're all enjoying the process of experiencing the recording. For the coaches it's fun too. For the students they're definitely, I think, enjoying, I'm hoping.
For sure.
Yep. All right, going back to our today's topic. So today we're going to discuss about the 4 different categories of singing voices, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So categorizing, how do we categorize our singing voice so that we know what kind of voice we have, so that we can work on it in a better way? If we understand it, nicely, then it will be also easier for us to know what to do about it. I think that's the whole idea behind it. And I think people have different, ways of framing the voices into categories, but there are definitely more general and then approach that we have been, working with for the longest time.
Yes.
So Bojana's gonna talk a little more about how we can categorize our singing voices from maybe the classical point of view, right?
Yeah. So basically, the title for today's podcast, we kind of discussed, right? We're gonna have the 4 different voice categories of singing voices as per the general guidelines, as you said, right? By general guidelines, I mean the way the classical world divides the voices, and that has been obviously widely accepted, right? Because we need, in the end of the day, for us to have some kind of a frame so that we know, then we can go into details and have work on a lot of things that way, because human voice is huge, right? There's male voices, there's female voices, there's lots of different types of techniques and singing. So we really have to have some kind of frame for our minds to catch on, where we stand at the moment, who we are in terms of voice identity of our singing voice, and how to train it, etc. So I thought it's going to be an interesting subject for us to discuss a little more in terms of these categories of voices. Okay, so let's follow up on that. Well, the four different type of voices, right? Main categories would be bass, baritone, alto, soprano, and tenor. Tenor, I should say bass, baritone, tenor, alto, and soprano. So it's 5. Sorry, I don't know why I put 4 in my mind here, but having a lot of things going on. So 5 different types of voices, right?
All right.
And how it all started. So many back in the day when there was no popular music, right? When there was all about classical singing, classical world, there was a lot of composers writing operas, right? That's how it was some time ago, back in the history. And when they were writing the music, obviously they had to put some categories for all the singers and musicians and instrumentalists to place themselves into that, into the scriptures, wherever they were writing. So they came out with these five type of main categories of voices. So things were easy, then they could pick people who, okay, you sound like bass, you're very low. You sound like baritone, you're a little higher than the bass and you can sing a little higher, we put you there. Then you sound like a tenor, oh brilliant, you can sing high, then we're going to put you there. Same thing, with the latest voices. So now the interesting thing about voice categories is that it's such a broad subject, and there's so many things to discuss, right? And this is the beauty of it. And oftentimes I'm sure that a lot of singers and just people from the general audience have not been sure where to place us as singing voice. I had that issue during my course of singing. Oftentimes even my first teacher of classical singing, she didn't know where to place me as a voice. That was really interesting. So it was like, oh my God, where am I? Who am I? And then you are in the classical, setting, and you really have to know where you are, because that's the only way that you can train and sing your voice, right?
Yeah.
So that's why this is important, though, so that you have a starting point.
Yeah, but why was it so now we know that maybe some of you heard of soprano, alto, like as female voice category, and then tenor and baritone and bass as male voice category, right? And I think you will explain a little more about what decides to be falling into each category. But why was it the case your teacher had struggled to place you into that category?
Oh wow! You see, that's interesting. First of all, in the age of like 14 and 15, this is where I started classical training, and this is how back in Europe most of the schools start training the voice by between the age of 14 and 18, right? So when we are in music high school, in that time, some of us have still some sort of puberty or voice development issues. So that's one reason why sometimes teachers struggle, because you are in that breaking point of your life where eventually your voice will change a little later. That's one reason. The other reason is there's a lot of these natural singers that we have, people who are born with like a singing voice, and then they can sing a lot of things. But when you go into the classical training, the type of singing, it's not like your normal everyday singing and what you watch on TV. You sing in a classical way, right? And there can be a flip, you can sound one way when you do popular music, when you sing pop music, and you can sound in another way when you do classical music, and especially in that very sensitive age between 14 and 18. So it can be quite like, oh my God, where am I? Who am I? So my teacher had issues with that, because sometimes I could go really, I always had a high voice though, but my lower range sounded very low and rich, just the sound of it, just the timbre. And then sometimes she or other people that I work with, they will be like, oh, she's an alto maybe. And then when they hear where I can go really high, it's like, oh, she's actually a soprano. And so it was a real struggle, trust me. It was like, wow, where do I belong, But yeah, that was one reason why teachers sometimes have issues, because it's a development phase, and then obviously after the age of 18, you already know who you are in terms of, your singing voice. Now, what's interesting about the, let's discuss a little more about, where do they range from? So obviously the lowest of voices, it's the bass, right? The bass goes somewhere from middle C, second E below middle C, so that's like the lowest note, all the way probably to middle C or something like that. That's like the bass, like the deepest voice that we hear. I love these voices personally. They're very low, they're so rare, and it's just like, wow, how can you even go? Like, how can you sing so low, right? So that's for the bass, but the baritone goes slightly higher. Someone from they start singing probably below middle C, second A below middle C. So just few notes higher than the actual bass, and they can also go a little higher than the bass when it comes to when they reach the middle octave, maybe about F or something like that. A even. Baritone can be quite high because in baritones we also have other categories, but that we're gonna discuss later. Then we go to tenors. Tenors are, we all know tenors that really high. They can sing really high. They can sing somewhere from A, below middle C, all the way to all the middle octave and a little above that. So they can sing pretty much like sopranos.
Like
So that's when it comes
sopranos.
to the male voices. Sometimes they can do, yeah. Tenors can absolutely, when you are a high voice, generally in any category, right? You can improvise a lot with your voice. It doesn't mean that you can sing. They can sing high. They can sing falsetto. When they sing falsetto, they reach the sopranic notes, or the alto notes. So it's very interesting. So tenors, yeah, in tenors. So so in any of these categories, there are subcategories. But about that, we're gonna discuss a little more next time in the second series of this podcast. So let's go to altos. Altos are somewhere from below middle C, from like F or E, probably E, below the middle octave, all the way to C3 or probably something like that. Altos can be, there's two categories in there as well. And let's not talk about it too much. Sopranos, the most interesting and the widest spread category of all. So tenors and sopranos they're really widespread, right? There's so many sopranos in the world, right? A lot more than altos or contraltos for that matter. Sopranos can sing all the way till the end of the last octave on the
All the way to
keyboard.
the top?
Yeah, these days, yes. It used to be a little lower, but I don't know if you notice, like everyone these days has a higher voice comparing to 50, 60, 100 years ago. Would you agree with that? Yeah, somehow, and everyone aims to sing higher, So our voices somehow extended a little bit. In sopranos are really interesting. So this is where my category comes in. The dilemma of not being able to place myself. Finally, after a few years, probably around the age of 20, I was categorized, and I absolutely felt that it's true and agree that I'm a soprano, which is spinto. That is a category that can sing a lot of sopranic roles and alto roles. Why? Because I have a huge range, but they cannot reach, that the highest of all, sopranos like Mariah Carey sort of type, or, all this like whistly notes. You can reach whistly notes, but not the highest ones. But then you can pretty much sing, everything. You can go sing some alto, you can go sing some soprano. So that's for the soprano category. And the rarest of all are, the coloratura. That's how they're called, the sopranos who can sing really, really high. Like Mariah Carey, for instance, it's a good example. In the classical world, we have quite a few. We have Nathalie Dessier, for instance. So they can touch those beautiful high notes and they will get the most exciting. They're very exciting to listen to. So yeah, that's about the five categories of voice. How do you call it? Voice dividation. I was going to say it in French, but anyway, yeah. So how does that sound to you?
Yeah, it's great. It's first thing is it's very useful for you to know that as much as we want to touch all the areas, all the ranges of the music, right? We want to be able to do everything. Basically, I want to sing all the low notes, all this really nice fancy, like very strong, firm, like a jazz songs. As much as I want to train that, it's very important to what you are what you are born with and what you have developed through the time. So I know myself enough that my strength actually lies on the higher scale, right? It doesn't mean that you should limit yourself to sing only in that scale, but then I think that definitely
Yeah.
having a good understanding about your own vocal range, and then it helps you to, you know, put like a starting point, you know, where you should start,
Yeah, for sure.
where
I
you
mean,
should
you know
start
what,
and
Hannah?
focusing on.
Yeah, we should know who we are. It's
Mm.
very important to us. When we get to understand who we are, we feel a lot more confidence about our own singing voice, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a very beautiful stage to be at, you know, knowing where you can go, what you can do, and in the same time not limit yourself. But yes, you can do a lot of things, of course, but you have to know who you are, right?
Yes.
It's important.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
very, very important. And sometimes, you know, depending on, as you, what is interesting about what you just said is, you know, people have, when they speak, they use one voice. When they sing, you know, or when they sing in regular, you know, like a casual situation, you have one voice. But if you go into
Yeah.
classical training, you kind of discover actually your voice can be quite different. You know, some people, like even the guys, when they speak like young boys. When they sing, they completely turn into bass singers.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that was what actually amused me a lot. So depending on how you develop, you know, how you learn how to sing, your voice can be totally, like, you know, creating a different register in a very good way. So I think, you know, there's, yeah, it's really good for you to, if you're coming, or if you're going for singing lessons and stuff, getting it good, nicely assessed, you know, with the right way and right technique. It
Yeah.
really helps you
Yeah.
to know what your vocal type is and your voice category will be. And
Yeah.
sometimes people do have the same matching category, but then sometimes when they're singing voice, you know, they might really find a different category than what they expected.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, well, that's what, you know, training does to you. More you train, more you sing, more you realize that there's a lot of things that you can do. But it's good for us to have that steady point, know exactly, okay, this is the type of voice that I am, this is what I can do, and that's where I am. Now, if you want to explore it further, you know, even to where you're coming from, that's very important, as you say. Now, how do you know what type of voice you are? That's interesting. How would you, this is like a dilemma, I think, for, you know, and it's like a debate between a lot of singers and professional vocal coaches, you know, and people who just try to define us what type of voice we are, right? Because in essence, if you start looking at the range of the piano and just comparing it to that, that's probably the easiest and the most correct way, right, to define who we are. But the thing is, once you start singing with your own natural voice, for instance, in the popular music, right, you might sound, you might have the range of, you might be a soprano, but your soprano notes might not be so strong. Maybe your tone, your timbre, for like in the alto range, it's better. You know. Yeah. So these are things that are very, very confusing. So how do you train? How do you know? Well, first of all, you define your range. So you see the range of yourself, and then you define, okay, I'm an alto. Fine, perfect. Let me try alto songs. So then when you try your alto songs, then you go like, oh, okay, if you don't sound like an alto, if you don't sound like, meaning that, you know, the right technique, the alto should sound like the timbre should be a little darker, stronger, you know, a little more richer per se. So then here you go, you have one area to work on. If you are an alto, you can work on your timbre, how to make that timbre nice, you know, how to get strong in that area if you're an alto, right? So these are things that you can look at, but you still have to know where you range from. If you're a soprano, right, cool, for instance, you have 4 octaves range, right? See, like that. But 4 octaves is a lot of notes. It doesn't mean that every single note you're doing it well. Yeah. So you work on sounds. So you're trying to improve. Okay, my middle octaves, it's not so good. Let me work on my middle octave. My high range is super well developed. Cool. I'm not supposed to be, you know, working on it too much, because if it's developed, if it's there, then I'm gonna have to focus on, you know, the middle octave, which is not good. So there's always a lot of areas of improvement, but you see how it's important for us to like know where we stand, and then we can know what to work on. So this is why, again, another reason why we have to know where do we belong. So that's one way. Now, how to train the voice types, right? How to give them a proper training. First of all, you have to feel comfortable each time you sing, right? So whatever techniques you're using, or whatever genre of music you're singing in, you really have to be comfortable. Like, this is the first indicator that you're on the right track when you sing. You have to be comfortable. There should be no tension in the throat. We all know this. Now, how do we train each type of voice? That's another. I think in popular music, it's not so much about which type of voice you are. It's more about identity, and if you have some kind of a particular sound, and then you work on the sound itself to make it better. Whereas in classical music, you work more on getting that technique. So technically, you must be 100% right. Once you get the technique right, then you can develop your own identity on top of that. Whereas in popular music, it's more about identity, personality, and the unique qualities that the voice already has as it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So these are things that you can look at, and you can see what type of person you are. Yeah. Are you inspired by technique? Yeah. Are you like, the type of person that was like, wow, this or that person sings so amazingly, they have a perfect technique, can I work on that? Or are you more into the raw sort of express myself, type of singer that does not really care so much about the technical aspect of their voice? If that's the reason, then you have to develop more, your own sound, your own work on what you already have. So you don't have to like put some additional work on, how you sound technically there. But you really have to know what inspires you, who you are, what you want to achieve. But that as we move along the way, our mind might change. You might be like, oh, now I want to develop, I don't know, I want to be more of a technical singer, because that happened to me many, many times. I was changing my mind, now I want to be this, now I want to be that. Because in the end of the day, you want to explore everything about the voice itself. I mean, about the singing voice. So, there's a lot of things that you can do with your singing voice. You can go everywhere. You can train it in many different ways. You can discover which category you belong to. You can even get a training for your own voice that you've never done. If you've never tried classical singing, you can try. Why not? I've got an example with one of my students. I kind of brought her into classical jazz, and she came out with this beautiful voice that she never uses, which sounds amazing. So there you go. A lot of things.
Okay, cool. So first thing, how to know who we are, how to know which type of voice we are. First, we need to listen to ourselves and see where we are feeling most comfortable, and our timbre like flows naturally, with a tone that is right for each category, right? This is how you will know what type of voice you are most likely to be. And then how do you train it? I think it was very nice that you pointed out what's your focus, right? Once you decided it to be, do you want to it really like focus on developing the technicality of it really, or do you want yourself to your voice to naturally come out, and more do I want it to be more expression of your own self, right, in an explorative way? Because I think the more you focus on technique, you might find like a right answer. You might seek a right answer to develop your technique, because so many people have developed the answers to, achieve the pure sound, achieve, certain like a pitch, or achieve a certain tone that they believe is most beautiful, right, in certain genre. Whereas really, if it's about expression, then you are exploring by yourself to create your own answers for your own voice. Yeah, so I think that's like how you can kind of see yourself where you want to put your own focus on, and then I think that's what's gonna also make you decide what kind of singer you want to listen to. Even though you are an alto singer, you might listen to totally entirely different type of singers if you are seeking like a technique, or if you're seeking like inspiration or musical like delivery of the emotions and stuff. So yeah, I think it's very nice, useful tips for you to know, and it's very nice insight for us to always have. And then if you cannot decide, then I think you can come down, you can talk to your coach, you can talk to your friend. Hey,
Yeah.
like I'm doing this, but then like, how does it sound to you? Like what do you feel
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah.
And just put it out there and then get their
Yeah.
feedback, because it's quite helpful to get the comments from other sides, the coaches, because they have experiences of dealing with so many types of the voices. It's not the like perfect guide for you to always like mindlessly follow, but yeah, there is something that you can really take and learn from their advice, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Okay.
Nice.
I think we've done our for today. How long have we been
So
going on?
before I finish,
Yeah.
okay, so yes. Okay, so I would like to ask, okay, from Bojana's perspective, what is
Okay.
Hannah's voice type, and how would you advise Hannah to develop her voice?
We can discuss that in private. I'm joking. Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, you can. Well, you are certainly a soprano.
Mm-hmm.
You might be a spinto like myself,
Mm.
but that will depend on the notes that you can reach on the on the keyboard. If you can go really really super high, then you're not a spinto soprano. Then you probably are a lyric coloratura, which means that the highest type of voice. For soprano, well, I think for you generally keeping yourself healthy. Keeping yourself healthy in many ways, it's important for me, for all of us. If you want to keep the sopranic range, if this is because you mentioned that's your strength, right?
Mm.
Yeah, so if you want to keep that going, and if you want to keep that range going, and I think you're doing well from that perspective, you have to exercise, eat the right foods, so that the range does not drop dramatically at one point, because what you have a very floaty voice, right? You float, like your voice floats a lot, right? That can if the breath support, for instance, it's not, I'm talking about later age, right? If the breath support and other elements are not fully developed, that can turn into a lot of floating. For instance, that doesn't mean that it's going to be like that. If someone is very heavy, but they're a soprano and they have a very heavy voice, but I can go higher, they have to think about how to increase that, sort of, to make the voice lighter, get more to your side. So it really depends of what you stand, where you stand at the moment. But yeah, with voices that like that a lot, just stronger breath support, keeping it healthy, and more grounded. I think it's a good idea, but you never know, and also if you keep training yourself in which is something that you do, I think you're gonna be good. If we stop training at some point, especially at later age, I think our range will slowly start decreasing.
Yay, thank you. Yes, I
Hope it's helpful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
But yeah.
So this is a type of advice that you can get if you are coming to the lesson with Coach Bojana. All right. Okay.
There's a lot more, but we're trying to narrow everything down because the subject is huge. So I hope it's not too confusing. But we're gonna talk a little more about this over the next 2 or 3 podcasts, or maybe not necessarily next week, right? But we're gonna have a few series in terms of of
With
these
voice
sort of voice
category and how
types.
to work on it.
Yeah.
Good. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening and tuning in and watching our videos. So if you have any questions, you can let us know. You can leave a reply. You can contact us. If you want to come for the singing lessons with me, with Bojana, with Harsha, we have other coaches like Nisha, Heidi, Anya, and Natalie. Yes, come and join us. All right, then I will see you next time.
See you next time. Have a great
Bye.
day, everyone. Thanks, Hannah. Bye.